What's up, tricksters? My name is Charlatan. I've been a Radiant player since closed beta, and with my private coaching programs, I've successfully improved thousands of Valorant players. Throughout my coaching experience, I've noticed that players are making some very simple mistakes that are losing you a lot of rounds and games on every map. In the previous video, I gave you a lot of strategies that will improve your win rate on these 7 maps, but since then, Ascent and Icebox came back into the rotation. So today I'm going to teach you a few very important pro tips and tricks on these 2 maps, and as always I'm going to make this type of a video whenever there is a new map rotation. Before we begin, keep in mind that on my Discord server you can find a ranked playbook with in-depth map guides where I completely explain how to properly play every single map in order to have the highest possible win rate in ranked solo queue. Okay, first, we're starting on a defender side of Ascent. The number one most important tip that you should know is that Ascent is a fast rotation map on a defender side. In Elos, below Immortal 3, but also in Immortal 3 and Radiant as well. So what does this mean to you? This means that on Ascent, you always want to prioritize team play over the map control. You're prioritizing the refray game, team play game. You're never willing to die alone trying to defend some kind of a position and commit yourself into some stupid 50-50 gunfights. On this map, it is totally fine, even if you play 12 rounds in a row, the retakes of A site and B site, especially if you're keeping your teammates alive and if we have some kind of a numbers or economy advantage. So essentially, on this map, the only time when you should play like a kamikaze and, always commit yourself into some 50-50 fights is if you're in some kind of a disadvantage. But when you're playing full buy rounds, first round, enemies are eco, hull buy, you don't really care that much about the B site and A site control. You're willing to play a 5v5, 4v4, 3v3, 2v2 retake at any moment of time. If that means that you will use the life of your teammates to fight together with them and win the round together on a refrag potential. Why is this good on this map? Because of the map design. I'm not gonna go too deep into it, like this is like a Dust 2 of Valorant, Value your life, value the refrag potential, and value the team play. Before we continue, this video is sponsored by Hone.gg. This software allows you to automatically optimize your PC in order to have the absolutely best performance for Valorant. So if you have low FPS or you're experiencing some in-game stuttering, Hone might be the right solution for you. An amazing thing about this software is that you don't need to have any experience when it comes to PC optimization, because everything is straightforward and simple. In the Home tab, you can create a system restore point, so if you're not satisfied with some changes, you can always revert them back. But also, at any moment of time, you can deactivate any optimization settings that you're not satisfied with. In the Optimizations tab, you can enable Basic, General, and Advanced tweaks, which will immediately show to you the performance boost. Once you find the best settings for your computer, with the Boost Up tab, you can clean your PC from any unnecessary junk that is potentially slowing it down. And finally, in the Gaming tab, you can enable the automatic optimization preset for Valorant, but Hone also supports many other games as well. Before I started using this software, I always had some in-game stuttering with occasional FPS drops. But after I applied all of these optimization settings, I've managed to boost my FPS and my Valorant gameplay is smoother than ever. You can use my link from the description to download Hone for free and test it yourself, but keep in mind that if you get Hone Premium, you get unlimited access with no ads. Even though this video is sponsored by Hone, which I highly appreciate, it is yet another software that I personally use to improve my Valorant gameplay experience. Second, very important tip on a defender side of Ascent is that you always value the control of the market and control of Garden and A short over the bomb site controls, especially if you're left alone in these 2 areas of the map. So for an example, enemies are splitting A site. One of your teammates is A short. You are A main. What do? We close the switch, we close these doors right here to eliminate one angle from which enemies can kill us. We sell the A site control and we fight with our neon in A short. We kill the enemies in A short, and then we play a numbers advantage retake on the A site. Plus, when you do this type of a strategy, where you are closing the doors, enemies will always think that you are closing the doors to fight for the bomb site. Very rarely, enemies are gonna have a mentality where, somebody closed the doors, they're probably fighting for short. Most of the times, enemies are gonna think, when you close the switch, that you're actually fighting for the side control, and that you're just using the doors to eliminate this specific angle. When you do this type of a strategy, you condition enemies to think that you're completely separated from your teammate in A short, or that you're not even fighting for the A short control. Basically, this switch is an amazing bait to make the enemies think in the opposite direction, to outplay the enemies. Another very important thing on defender side of Ascent, and why people lose most of their matches on Ascent, you're playing way too passive. Your starting position on Ascent can never be this. You're defending B site, and somehow your starting position is here with a judge. That is impossible. Especially if you're playing alone on A and B. You need to give your teammates the information. How many enemies are going through the B main or A main? Are there any enemies there? And then you can play these angles as your secondary, third, or fourth positions. Killjoy players especially, like, they place the full setup here, and they are playing at the backside here. We have one guy market and 3 people A. You're giving way too much space to the enemy team. You have no information about the enemies. Here, and here, rounds become 10 times harder. One very cool passive strategy, and very good passive strategy, with movement agents, with teleports such as Omen, Yoru, Jet with a dash, and Vele with a dash. You camp behind this box. Like, this box is something that doesn't get cleared anymore. Like, people don't expect anyone playing here anymore, because it's such a bad angle and bad position, easily spammable, you're stuck, you cannot do shit. But for an example, when you're playing Omen, enemies are pushing A site, you smoke them off, and you wait for the enemies to hit the switch. So you're letting the enemies come into the site. You pick the switch guy, kill him, TP away, you make a numbers advantage, and now you can simply play a 4v5 retake with your teammates. This is one of the passive setups that you use when you cannot fight for the aim and control. For some reason, I don't know. You don't have utility to do that. Your teammates don't want to do that. You can do this with any other agent, like even with Cypher. Like, yes, you don't have teleports, but you don't need to play at a... You can create some kind of a trip setup. One trip here, one trip here. Then you put a cage here or here, and you play from the short smoke. Enemies are gonna smoke you here. You just wait for the enemies. You'll get at least 1 kill. And then we play retake with our teammates. The final tips I'm gonna give you for Ascent in this video. 2 very important smokes on defender side. If your teammates are ever stuck on the A site, your teammates are playing behind this box, behind the generator, under the site, always give them this smoke. This smoke is very important, so they can outmaneuver the enemies, potentially get a kill, and potentially maybe even survive before we rotate. Second smoke on the B site. Whenever your teammates are stuck on the site, like you have 1 or 2 teammates basically here, and enemies are swarming them, beside the default smoke that you probably already did, give your teammates this type of a smoke for the backside. With this smoke, they can easily play around it and potentially outplay the enemies with different peaks, survive a bit longer, etc, etc. But also, what is really good smoke, and that I do a lot of the times, whenever I have one teammate stuck on the site, especially if that teammate is playing stairs, I love to do this type of a smoke here. Now, what is this smoke for? 99% of times, enemies are gonna do this smoke to push the B site. This smoke connects with this smoke, and it allows your teammates to go in and out of the bomb site freely. Now, on the attacker side of Ascent, the first thing that you should pay attention on is the enemy's team composition. Like, for an example, if enemies have only 1 sentinel or 0 sentinels, one of the main things that you should try to abuse on this map are the 5-man executes and splits onto the A site. A site is much easier site to be executed, much easier site to be played in a post plant as well, and on A site, your teammates cannot make that many mistakes as much as they can make in this area of the map. Pay attention on if enemies have a Phoenix, for an example, always expect some kind of a molly flash setup, and the best way to counter that type of a setup is simply playing on this position baiting your teammates a bit, I mean waiting for enemy's utility, and then peeking on the contact between yours and enemy team and taking a kill. When your teammates are somewhere on this line, you simply drop down and you commence the push together with your teammates, because you don't want to let them peek this alone, like you want to fight with them always. But as soon as you notice, fireman executes on this map are not working for you, we need to default. Like that is one of the main mistakes why players lose so many rounds on the attacker side of Ascent. You need to push the enemies back from these main choke points, and you need to take mid control. Like for example, just smoke short, take the full mid with your allies, and then decide what to do next. Or smoke the bottom mid here, take the short control, take the mid control, and then decide what to do next. Now, when it comes to the smokes, like, I only have one tip to give you, like, make sure that this smoke here never has this type of a gap. And this is something that you can abuse also on defender side as well. A lot of the players do this smoke like this. They leave a huge gap here, where you can simply jiggle peek the enemies and take the free kills on timing. Make sure that the smoke is sticking out a bit, like this, so, enemies have nowhere to peek. Second tip I'm gonna give you on this map is that whenever you're pathing onto the A site, always prioritize this type of pathing instead of this one. Like, this pathing is an absolute suicide. You're overexposed from an enormous amount of different angles, and you should never path from the right side unless you have some kind of a cover for yourself. Jet smoke, cypher cages, some great utility users from your teammates. But 90% of times, your pathing with almost any agent should be like this. Like, your job is to get into this position and this position, and from these two angles, we're fighting the enemies. Also, when it comes to closing the switch, most of the times you should leave that job in the hands of your teammates, because closing the switch is very dangerous. You should always expect the enemies to peek out of this smoke and always be ready for that specific play. Another solution for this problem, where you want to counter charlatan that is peeking through the smoke with the shotguns, is if you're playing like agents with the lineups. Like for example, you're playing Valet with a saturate ability, Phoenix with a Molotov. You should be developing lineups for this, so that the enemies that are playing inside of the smoke are flushed out. They either need to go out, stay inside of the smoke, or pull back. I just want to point out one more mistake that I see a lot of the times. Whenever you have this default smoke, when you're clearing in the A site, you're going into the site, clearing this spot, clearing the under, top of the site, this position, always clear inside of this smoke as well. Or spam it a bit. Like, a lot of the times, what you can do on a defender side, which is another great play, in these lower elo lobbies, players will never expect you playing inside of this smoke here. Very rarely. They're gonna be aware of it. Inside of this smoke, your feet are not visible, and you need to clear it when you're playing on the attacker's side. Be aware of this position. Another thing that you need to learn, like, this is very important on both attackers and defenders side. These boxes right here, and understanding how the site is built. On the right side, we have the speedway. When the enemies are dropping from this speedway, they need to make a sound, period. On the left side, we have stairs. So enemies can walk into the site without us hearing them, and that's a bit of a problem. Most of the times, when you're playing B set alone, you're stuck on the site, stuck around these boxes, stuck at the backside. Your main focus should be towards the stairs, because you already have information on the right side. Very, very rarely, players are gonna do something like this. Yes, you can drop from this position silently if you're holding shift and abusing the silent step mechanic. But very, very rarely that is gonna happen during the high-paced retakes and stuff like that. This position is amazing when enemies are pushing you into the site, on both attackers and defender side, when you're playing retakes. But also, you will notice that in high elo lobbies, what players do a lot of the times, they spam this position. It should be like a common angle, but players below Immortal 3 very, very, very rarely expect anyone. I mean, they're probably maybe gonna expect you, but they're definitely not gonna spam you through the wall. And the beauty of this box is, like, we're isolating one fight, then we have second fight. And during the post plants, most of the time, you want to play around these boxes. Holding this off angle, being hidden from the stairs, or holding this off angle, killing the enemies in speedway, stairs. Then we have stairs, speedway, speedway. Like, there are so many, you know, great off angles and great opportunities that you can create for yourself if you play around these boxes. Okay, now we're moving on to the defender side of Icebox, and we have immediately one very important tip. On this map, on a defender's side, you almost always need to have the information whether or not enemies can be here. So essentially on Icebox, even though A site is our #1 priority and our default bomb site, on this map, we need to have the info whether or not enemies can be inside of the tube, mid, or maybe they're lurking through the A-link. No matter how many sentinels you have on this map and which sentinels you have, like, you need to have some kind of a setup for the kitchen, or for the tube, or for the mid. Like on this map, you know, mid control is not that important. You know, you should not be allocating way too many resources on mid, but information on mid is very important, so that we always know whether or not someone is maybe lurking, flanking, you know, whether or not enemies can backstab us or our team. So for an example, if you have Chamber in your team, Chamber should be placing the trademark inside of the kitchen almost every round, so that we have the info whether or not enemies can be in the kitchen. If you have Killjoy in your team, Killjoy can place various different setups, such as this one for the tube and mid, or this one, once again, for the tube and mid as well. I see a lot of the times, you know, like, Sentinel players will mainly allocate all of their utility on either B site or A site. But we need to have something for mid. We need to block off at least one of these points with our utility, and we need to have some kind of a pressure here. Like, not pressure, just information gathering tool. And of course, like, almost every single round, we should have at least one teammate that is guarding the mid area of the map, as well as some specific utility that is helping us to do that. Now, if you don't have any utility for mid, count the enemies. Always pay attention on the minimap. Ask yourself, how many enemies did you see? Do enemies like to lurk and flank? How often do enemies like to lurk and flank? Simply track the enemies' patterns of pushing and what they like to do on a macro and micro level. The second tip I need to give you on this map is that crosshair placement, positioning, and how you clear and how you abuse angles on this map is more important than almost anything else. Like, for an example, if you're defending the mid area of the map, this off angle here is amazing to surprise the enemies and potentially get a safe, free kill. Why? If enemies are not smoking off the mid, right here, very rarely enemies are gonna clear this angle completely. Like, most of the times, players will do something like this, and then they're gonna do this. They're not gonna be expecting you all the way up there with their crosshair placement. Plus, we're playing a position with a drop-off, so basically we can take this angle, go for 1 bullet, 3 bullets, go down with a knife, reset for the next fight. Then if you're playing Chamber or Jet, you can maybe take some kind of an off angle, like this, with a teleport, with a dash ability. Why? Because most of the times, when enemies are clearing the mid area of the map, they're gonna be clearing the window, and they're not gonna be expecting you under the window. Then, in top mid area right here, we can play some kind of a double tower setups. Like, for an example, one of your teammates can be above you, right here, and you're below them. As soon as the round starts, you drop down, and you take this angle. Great double tower setup. There is no way that enemies are gonna kill both of you guys. On the A side, we have enormous amount of great off angles that we should be abusing. This off angle here is still great in low and medium elo lobbies to potentially catch enemies off guard and get some headshot kills. Now, this position right here is an off angle that I very rarely see being cleared in lobbies below Immortal 3. Like, once again, an amazing off angle, amazing headshot position where you can easily get a kill with the operator or with any automatic weapon. Another tip I need to give you for A site is that you really want to abuse the elevation of this bomb site as much as possible. So basically, most of the times, you want to move here, 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 and here. Why? So that you can see above the enemy's utility and above your teammate's utility as well. Another great off angle that you can use to kill the enemies on the belt is this box right here. So for an example, you play on the edge of this box like this, and you hold the belt in this specific way. Obviously, this off angle is the best with snipers, you know, operator, outlaw. And on Icebox, I would heavily recommend you, even if you're playing an agent such as Sage, Cypher, Killjoy, learn how to play operator. Learn how to abuse outlaw in anti-eco and bonus rounds. This off angle here is also great. This position you can play in 3 different ways. You can hold it on the back all the way here, like an off angle, and try to kill the enemies that are going through belt, nest, and pipes. After a fight, simply drop down with a knife out. You're not gonna take any damage if you drop right here, and now we reset onto second angle. Then this position, once again, we can play like this. We can hide from the enemy's initial push, and then when we expose the enemies on the minimap, or we hear them somewhere specifically, we can pick them for an easy frag. Voila! And then drop down with a kill, reset ourselves, and play with our teammates. When you want to aggress the enemies by using the ropes, you want to go onto the belt or you want to go onto the pipes, always start your round right here, so that you're picking up the ropes a bit faster. You know, the barrier on the A site is here. So when you do this, you lose a bit of momentum and a bit of speed, essentially. But if you start all the way here, you are 0.5, 0.6 seconds faster, which can be significant when you're trying to outplay the enemies and when you're trying to reach this position before they peak that specific angle. With some agents, you have some very cool setups to surprise the enemies with early aggression. With a jet, if you stand close to this barrier right here and you use the updraft as soon as the round starts, you're instantly ready to pick a fight with the enemies and maybe take some free kills. Then, with the Omen for an example, all you need to do is stand on this angle, aim on top of this line right here on the wall, teleport. As soon as the round starts, you're always faster than enemies. You might get some free kills. Why not? Also, like with smokes, like with Viper and with Omen and other controllers, you can create various different setups to surprise the enemies and kill them. Like for an example, you know, one of the best setups to stop and delay the enemy's push on A site is the boob setup, which is great. I mean, it is impossible to pass it. You know, we have a one-way smoke here. The only position through which enemies can push is right here. So if you're playing on some kind of an off angle like this, the site is locked down. Also, we can abuse this type of a setup for some kind of an aggression as well. You know, we can take the ropes, get in the smokes, and then wait for some perfect moment of time to strike and to surprise the enemies. Maybe with the shotguns, maybe with a Bucky, maybe with a shorty, maybe with a judge. You know, you're not limited on this map to only playing the long-range weapons. You can also play the short-range weapons, depending which agent you're playing. Now, beside all of this mechanical stuff, on Icebox you also have some very cool tips and tricks that you should know about. Like for an example, you know, this screen right here is fully spammable with high penetration weapons and medium penetration weapons, and when enemies are pushing into the bomb site, or they're maybe planting the spike right here, you can actually spam the enemies and take a free kill. Then the tube is fully spammable as well. Like this whole wall and the whole tube can be spammed with medium and high penetration weapons. So if you see that your teammates are maybe fighting the enemies that are inside of the window right here, you can try to spam the enemies from the B side and maybe support your teammates. This off angle here at the snowman is still an angle that I very rarely see players clear in lobbies below Immortal 3. It's a great off angle when you're smoked off. Like, you know, if enemy Viper or enemy Omen smoke you off, you always see the enemies on top of these boxes right here. One thing that you can abuse this one-way smoke in multiple different ways. Like for example, it doesn't matter if you have Viper, Brimstone, Astra, Omen in the team, this setup can work with any agent. When you place this smoke all the way on the edge, right here, the smoke creates this circle on the ground. As long as your feet are inside of this circle, enemies don't see you. Enemies don't know that you're in the smoke. So you can play in some eco rounds and halberd rounds within this smoke, and then when the enemies are close, pop out and kill them. Also with the Omen, you know, or with any other agent, you can try this strategy in any round. Maybe enemies are just gonna pass you by, you know, they're not even gonna clear this smoke, and you can surprise them from behind and kill them. Maybe with the Omen, as I said, like you can try to teleport behind the enemies, take some free kills. We can maybe teleport, you can teleport all the way on top of this box, try to kill the enemies, try to surprise them. Why not? Also with the Omen, you know, or with the Jet, with Chamber, like all of these agents that have movement abilities, vertical movement, you can teleport here and basically ask immediately for the smoke from your teammates if you think that enemies are gonna go B. And then, you know, we can surprise the enemies from within this smoke but on the top and kill them from an off angle like this one, for an example. Now, one thing that I will heavily recommend you to avoid is peeking the bottom of the tube from right to left. This type of a fight never works in the favor of a defender side players. Why? Because the tube is sloped towards the right side. It goes like this. And because of the angle perception disadvantage, enemies will always see you before you see them. For an example, if Charlatan is holding this angle, which is, by the way, one of the best angles from which you can hold the enemy's peak, you know, from the tube, also this position as well, you don't see me, essentially. You know, if both of us are playing operator, for an example, I'm gonna kill you because of this angle perception disadvantage. So whenever you want to peek the enemies under the tube, always do it from left to right. You know, do it from this position. And when you're rotating from B to A, if you're already rotating, you know, through this B-link, B-orange area of the map, just do this. You know, like just crouch, jump, and reveal the enemies on mid with this specific mechanic. Don't even consider taking this type of a fight because you don't see the enemies. Up here, you don't see this enemy well, you know, if he's playing that headshot angle. You don't want to risk this. Now, another cool trick that you should know is that this wall here is also fully spammable with high pen weapons. So for an example, if you're retaking A site with Guardian, with Sheriff, Odin, I don't know why would you play Odin on Icebox, but Odin, Operator, maybe you can try clearing this angle, or clearing, for an example, this angle, or clearing underneath yourself with a few shots. Why not? As I said, the more things you try, more success you're gonna find. Also, because Valorant maps are made out of paper, there is another spam that you should know about. Basically, with, you know, Odin, with any high pen weapon, you can spam this part of the wall and maybe kill the enemies that are moving up belt, or enemies that are on this box. Now, moving on to the attacker side of Icebox. First of all, whenever you have no idea what to do on this map, like we're just defaulting, we don't know if you're gonna fake or do some kind of a 5-man execute, always tell your teammates, or if you are playing a controller, put a smoke right here. Basically, this smoke denies enormous amount of information from the enemy team. Like, you can put this smoke with a Viper, with a Poison Cloud, we have a lineup from here. You can do a smoke with a Omen, with a Clove, anyone. Basically, this smoke is a great pressure-making tool. Like, enemies don't know if we're gonna go through mid, if we're gonna go into the tube. Like, especially if the enemies don't have a Sentinel in their team, like they don't have a Killjoy to guard the mid with her utility, this smoke right here is mega important. Just when you're placing it, make sure that there is not a single gap left and right through which enemies can see you passing through. Another reason why this smoke is amazing and why you should use it from time to time to condition and pressure enemies is because if you use this smoke a few times and you never do anything with it, in some kind of an eco round, or if your executes are not working, you can actually try using this smoke to flank the enemies and surprise them from behind, actually backstab them. So, you know, with this smoke, we can easily take the space here, lurk behind the enemies, try to see if we can maybe find some kind of a pick for our team. Same thing we can do through mid as well. So essentially, this smoke here is very important, and whenever you're not certain where your team is going to end up, and, you know, there are no callouts, you're defaulting or playing way too slow, way too passive, like even if you have only one smoke for the A set and B set execute, that is everything that we need. Like for an example, when you're executing A set of Icebox, all you need to do is this. Like that is the most important smoke that we should have during the execute of A set on Icebox. When you're executing B site, the most important smoke is the tri-lane smoke for the backside, CT, and voila, that's it. Like we can kinda live without the second smoke. And if you're playing Viper, essentially, like, I mean, you still have your wall, so we can place the wall, you know, for the A site to block off the enemy's vision in CT and to cross this A main area of the map safely, or we can use a default wall for the B push that goes across the tower, blocks off the vision of the enemies on the right side and at the back side as well. Now this map is really all about the angle clearing, proper crosshair placement, proper entry pathing, and, you know, playing with your teammates. So that is why one of the most common mistakes that I see in my coaching sessions is that players have no idea how to take space in the B main and A main area of the map and how to actually execute these bomb sites. So first of all, whenever you're pushing the A site and A main area of the map, never go from the left side. Like there is absolutely no reason for you to be here unless you want to counter and punish the enemies that are playing these off angles 24/7 with the operator. Otherwise, there is absolutely no reason for you to end up here, where you're fully overexposed from the enemies on tower, on all of these off angles, and potentially an enemy that is peeking you from the jail. Why would you do that? Go through the belt, place your crosshair for the fast belt play that I showcased you on a defender side, then check the jail, and now you decide, do I want to move from the belt and support my teammates from the belt, or simply drop down, and then from this position we can clear the pipes, clear close, clear that angle, now move backwards, get on the boxes, clear the tower, move on the generator, voila! Clear this off angle, we're ready to move in with our teammates. Like, this is the proper pathing when you're taking the A site and A main area of the map of Icebox. Now, if you're going from the belt and engaging enemies from the belt, number one tip is that you should always ride the edge of the belt. So if you end up in some kind of an effed up scenario, like, you know, you start missing your bullets, or there's like two enemies on your screen and you cannot fight two enemies at the same moment of time, you can instantly pull the knife out and reset that fight. Next tip is to clear every angle with a proper crosshair placement, proper movement, one by one. Don't do this, you know, unless you're playing Jet with a dash ability, or Chamber with a teleport, or Vele with a teleport. Like, your crosshair needs to be ready for the most common angles and off angles as well when you're clearing a set from the belt. Like, we need to. First of all, what you can do is jump spot the enemies here to reveal whether or not Charlatan is playing this off angle and whether or not some enemies are playing there. Then, place your crosshair for the rafters. Jiggle in and out, in and out. Now we clear this position and this position in the same time. Now we place our crosshair for the headshot position, because headshot position is more common than players playing, you know, directly in the window right there. So we clear this spot. Then we clear the window, this angle right here, together with the window. Then we place our crosshair for this off angle right here. Then for this off angle, for this position, for this position, for this position. And now we clear that off angle as well. Of course, this should be a lot faster, but that is why you need to practice this in a custom server like. And the final tip I'm going to give you in this video for the A site is that you should always engage enemies from above. Fly like a phoenix, brother. 90% of times, you should be engaging the enemies from the belt, from the pipes, and from the tower. Why? Because 90% of times, your teammates are gonna be scared to do that. So what you want to practice and what you want to get comfortable with is doing something like this. Basically engaging enemies from the pipes and getting the ropes to get on the 410 generator. And then from the 410 generator, you're supporting your teammates and fighting from this spot. We can use this as a cover, you know, from the enemies on the left side, and just lock in onto the enemies on the right side and on the tower. So when your teammates are doing this, like they're going into the pipes or onto the right side, you want to be either on pipes or on top of the 410 generator, ready to support your allies from above. Like basically from top of the 410 generator, you see everything. Above every smoke, yes, you're a bit more exposed, but it is even worse cluttering this position and this position with an enormous amount of teammates. Like one Molotov, one Nanoswarm, one Nade, one Flash. We're bugging each other's out. Too much cluttering happens in these two choke points. I mean, in these two positions, essentially. Now, one tip that I didn't mention on the, defense of Icebox is that whenever enemies on the attacker side are eco, hull buy, or bonus, always start somewhere on mid. Like you can start aggressively by peeking the tube. Like for an example, because enemies are eco hull buy, we can maybe purchase the outlaw and go for this type of a peek. Like at the start of the round, make one footstep and then walk and then lock down the mid area of the map. Or you can simply watch the mid, from top mid or under the tube or inside of the tube. Why is this very important? Whenever enemies on the attacker side of Icebox are eco, hull buy or bonus, chances are above 80%, enemies will make the first contact with your teammates somewhere either on mid or on the B side. Very rarely, enemies that are playing a eco round, hull buy round or a bonus round are going to have the confidence to do a 5-man push onto the A side. So that is why, in those type of rounds, you should generally start somewhere, in this area of the map and simply play fast rotations between B and A side. And on the attacker side, whenever you notice that enemies on defense are eco, hull buy, or bonus, you don't need any of this. Just do a 5-man push onto the A side. You will find significantly higher success if you do this instead of playing these type of rounds however you want. Now, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe, leave a like, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask me down in the comments. Also, big thanks to Hone for sponsoring this video. Once again, remember that on my Discord server, you can find the ranked playbook where I explain all of these strategies in depth with many more tips and tricks to improve your ranked solo queue win rate. Other than that, thank you for watching, and your favorite raiding coach is already preparing a new guide for your faster improvement.